tutti. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 2020 edition of Festival dei Popoli, online edition this year. My name is Alberto Diana. I'm member of the selection committee, and I'm very, very happy today to introduce you a filmmaker who is already a friend of Festival dei Popoli. 5 years ago, she was part of the international competition with her short film Territory, that was screened already in many international film festivals all over the world. And now she's back with her new short film called Bubble. I'm very happy to introduce from London, Eleanor Mortimer. Welcome, Eleanor.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Alberto. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I'm really happy to be there in spirit, not in person, but in spirit. That's the important thing, right? I just close my eyes and like see Florence in front of me. Yeah.
Yes, we really hope to meet again in Florence, but unfortunately this year, you know, it's kind of complicated. But let's talk about your film. Bubble. In Bubble, we see a tropical fish shop in the east end of London. The last one still open in a place where used to be many. This place is called Wholesale Tropicals and looks like an actual aquarium. No, they're surrounded by amazing tropical fish. There are people walking in the islets, like sort of imitating, no, the same rolling motion of films. And this shop look like a privileged setting to discover stories that reveals a kind of collective portrait of a community. I want to start talking first about the fish shop. How did you discover this place? Are you also a fish keeper, or and why you are decided to make a film inside this place?
Yeah, so I was actually. I don't anymore keep fish, but I had two consecutive fish over 2 years. They're Siamese fighting fish, so they're little fish that you have to keep alone. And I was told that they were good starting fish, and I got the fish because I found a fish shop. I was on a date and the date wasn't going very well at all. This was about a few years ago. But what was good about the date was that I found this fish tank on the streets of London with all of the stuff that goes with it. So I was like, this is a sign, I'm going to have to get a fish. So the first place I went was this tropical fish shop, and bought the fish, and I just found them like really, it was just a really, really funny place to be. It was a really funny place to hang out. So over the next couple of years, as you know, I kept my fish and like went in there to buy food and chat, and I was like, it was always kind of in the back of my mind. I was like, oh, I really do want to film in here. And there was something that during that period that I got really fascinated by fish, and like why like we keep them, and like why, like basically with my fish, which was in the living room of my shared flat back then, I just used to get lost in watching this fish move around the tank, and it really was like a stress relief for me. Like it was a way of kind of like completely zoning out of my life and just concentrating on this little controlled world, which was a fish tank, and the fish kind of looking out at me. And I just like used to wonder, like, what the hell do fish think of us, like rushing around like on crazy lives, and like, do they think anything at all? I mean, I used to think that my fish recognized me, like I was sure. I think it did, but yeah, I don't know. So then particularly when I went back to the tropical fish shop, I loved just looking at how the fish were all divided in their little tanks, so they couldn't see each other. So they were looking out at us, all they can really see is us, and we're looking in at them. And it just seemed to me as well at the time, like I'm not from the city, I'm not from London, so London always seems a bit of a strange place to me. Like I'm the kind of person who will randomly talk to strangers, and I'm from a small town, people smile at each other, and London is just not like that. People pass, like it's quick, it's kind of, it can be quite a lonely place. So anyway, so when my second fish, Umbop, died sadly in the heat wave of like 2018, I decided, that was that point, I think I decided, okay, I really actually just need to start hanging out in the tropical fish shop. I'm not going to buy any more fish, but I'm going to start filming in there. And that's how it started. They forgave me for the fact that my fish died, and they allowed me to film.
Okay, it's interesting what you say, because I think that's a really interesting thing in your film, that is the way you film the encounter between human and animal. No, it's not something new for you, because we already explored this dimension in Territory, but in this film Bubble we are approaching that in a very intimate way, no?
Mm.
And we could say in a certain way that your films are kind of essays about the gaze of human beings related to the animals, no? Always playing in a very cinematic way. Could you please tell us something more about that choice of filming?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a lot of ways, I sort of feel like we are animals, like we are, and life has got like very complicated for us, because that's the way that we've built our lives to be. You know, we've built a lot of stuff around us. We've built social constructions. We've built like thoughts, like with organizations. And for me, I suppose watching humans and animals side by side, and the way that we read into animals and can use them as kind of reflections really of our own state, is a way of exploring perhaps sometimes the kind of disconnect between us and the lives that we built around us, if that makes sense. And that sometimes actually we built these constructs around us, like these massive kind of metropolitan sort of cities, and like yet there is an element perhaps that we might be a little bit alienated from that, and there's a kind of search for also a simpler kind of interaction with each other, and that animals offer that simplicity, at least on the surface. And yeah, for me, the fish were like a little reflection of a way of reflecting our internal, like the internal worlds of the characters as well, which is not necessarily something I anticipated when I started filming, but you know, actually that all of the people that I ended up featuring in the film were actually lived alone and had experienced quite a lot of loneliness in their life. And I think perhaps also the fact that we had taken these fish from wherever their environments are in the sea, and they had been, but they've obviously been bred in these fish tanks, so they don't know any different. And we're taking them, and you know, we're kind of creating in a way this this different kind of like boxed environment for them, that they don't know any different. Like it also seemed a bit, for me, like sometimes how I feel a bit in the city, like I'm just a bit like we're all just in our like boxes somehow that we've created for ourselves, you know.
Yes, in fact, this is, I don't know, something that we experience also at the end of the film, no? When the shop closes, all the people are at home looking at their fish tanks, but when the credit starts, the camera starts looking at people from outside the buildings and looking at their apartments through the windows. So I found very interesting also this choice to overturn the point of view, like the human beings were fishes inside the tanks.
Yeah. There's some I thought quite a lot about that actually when I was filming these fish tanks in a row, and how when you're cycling or walking through London at night, you just see this, which is the same as in any big city, right? You just see these big high rises, often with like people with doing their own little separate things in their own separate lives. And it really reminded me, like it really felt like the two things could be seen side by side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also want to ask you something about the characters of your film. You know, there
Yeah.
are father and sons,
Yeah.
big child and little child who works to keep the shop alive.
Yeah.
And there is also a black and white photo that reveals to the audience the long story or the long
Yeah.
history of the fish shop in the neighborhood. But
Yeah.
above all, there are the local fish keepers with their stories and their drama. And I think that always with a insightful and ironic gaze, no, you reveal a great talent to recognize in such a tiny place universal issues like solitude, love,
Yeah.
empowerment. And also there is something that is interesting in relationship with the city, no? Uh, there is also the old man that denounced with indignation the people paying £1 million for a house in the East
Yeah,
End. No, I think
yeah,
this is also a melancholic portrait of
yeah,
a community in a very difficult period. No, also
yeah,
for the city of London.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting the kind of geographical location of the shop, which is really near. So it's in the East End of London. It's very near the financial district, the city, the financial district of London, where all the banks are. It's really just a stone's throw. And that area has kind of massively changed over the last 20 years. Like, so Big Tal and Little Tal, who the father and son who run the shop, Big Tal, he started selling fish on the market, 40 years ago. He was the kind of selling fish in kind of bags to people on the market. Set up his first shop in the 60s, and then kind of Tal took over. Tal the younger kind of took over as well. But when they first started the shop, there were loads more shops like that, because it was really a way of it was really a hobby, like a big hobby for people in the area, for kind of working class people in the area, really. And a lot of the area has changed hugely, and a lot of those people have kind of left. Which is a constant. I mean, the city is in a constant cycle of changing, I think. But like, I suppose part of the questioning behind the film, because I really didn't plan for people actually to be telling me about things like loneliness or mental health. Like, I really just allowed people to kind of talk about whatever actually they wanted. It was a sort of a window for them to talk about whatever things they cared about, and those were the things that came out. And I suppose it's a questioning behind, okay, well, hang on, like, what will we be left with if, because particularly in London, property is seen as an investment, it's an asset, that's it. So it's sort of like, hang on, but what happens when we start to see space and places as just a means to make money? Obviously the tropical fish shop is a business, but it's not a kind of it's these kind of investment properties that are driving people out of places that used to be thriving communities, and there is a loss that comes with that.
But in a certain way, I think that your film is also like a way to resist against this tendency. No, your film creates a community.
Yeah,
The
and
portrait.
and I think that is, I mean, I do see my films generally as a form of resistance, even though they're not protest films. They're not like really overtly films with messages, but I do see them as kind of little, like, I want, it's sort of like I want people to stop and think like about the things that we take for granted, or the things that we think are normal and are just happening anyway, and sort of think, hang on, like, what are we losing? Like, what are we losing? What happens when we come together, and what happens if we can't come together? And I think it's really interesting what's happening now, and how we're all adjusting to different ways of coming together. But it's good to think about the fact, it's good to know that we do need each other. And that, I think, is something that also gets lost in like a capitalist rhetoric of like individualism, is that, we all have our goals and our things and we move forward, and actually it's as if we don't need each other, which is just like, we know that we need each other, and we need to meet strangers, but we also need to be in a community. And I think a lot of people feel like they fall through the cracks. Sorry, they're not in a community. They don't belong anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Eleanor, for the conversation. And with this, is a great pleasure, and congratulations again for your
such a pleasure.
Amazing film. And we hope to meet you soon in Florence again. So
and thank you so much, for showing the film. I love the festival. It's like Festival de Property is brilliant. So it's really nice to see you here. And I'll be watching all the films for definite.
For sure.
Can't wait.
So, good luck with your job, and big hug, and stay safe. And thank you again also to our virtual audience. And please don't forget to follow the festival in our platform and also in our social media. So Thank you. Bye,
Thank
Eleanor.
you.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye. Bye.